You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
And we would like to wish everybody a happy Labor Day, right? Labor Day was around the corner, or actually just passed, and we all kind of got together. Well, I didn't get together, but you guys got together. I had family in town, and we all kind of were able to have a little play session, and thought we'd kind of talk about what happened on Labor Day. So, you guys doing all right? I mean, did y'all go fly this week, or you guys did go fly because you were down there.
Well, when I was down there, we definitely flew. We flew
right.
almost every day, which is actually unique for a trip down to Jay's, because there's usually
that is
some rain
true.
or some other event that we're doing or something that gets in the way. But we had Jim with us too, which was cool because he had a lot of fun, brought a lot of fun with him too. So we were able to have a really good time, and I don't think both of us we were both struggling because you got to get up early to hang out with Jim.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I understand that too. Yeah, but that totally get that. Well, before we get started, if you're on our YouTube channel, make sure you smack that bell and subscribe to us so that you can hear everything about the Park Flyer Podcast on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on any of our podcast forums, then welcome. I will tell you that I was able to find us on iHeartRadio, and it's a really great platform. They have picked us up, and we're proud that we were able to be in their some of their top RC podcasts off of iHeartRadio. So if you have the iHeartRadio app on your phone, you can just go there, search under podcast for Park Flyer Podcast. All our episodes come up, and we'd love to have you. So give us a thumbs up again, and welcome.
So Mike, that subscribe is like ding, and then thumbs up.
That's it. Ding and a thumbs up. There you go. We like it.
Okay, just for the visual people in the crowd.
Well, we appreciate the visual there, Mike. Hey, so let me go first. I had family in town for Labor Day, and we were able to kind of go do some fun stuff. But while the weekend was around and I was kind of hanging out, I was able to create a custom wiring harness. I've been working on the L39, and I was able to create this custom wiring harness for the L39. And so I ordered this AMP D3100 quick disconnect. It's kind of an auto disconnect feature. It's got really larger pins in it, which are not really conducive to the smaller, really tiny wires of a servo or even the lighting. But I had, basically two wing servos, a landing gear, the brakes, the lights, and then I had a wing light, landing light, and an extra nav light. It wasn't extra, but it was just the nav light on the wing. So I had all these wires that were coming through the wing, and I needed some way to put them in a single unit so that when I connected the wing, I only had to do just one connect and one disconnect. And these are very large pins. They produce a lot of, they have the capability of producing a lot of amps, even though a bunch, of amps don't go through there because they're low voltage lights. And the servos are high amp. They're about 8-volt servos. But I did get a crimper, and it was kind of easy for the servo wires. But when it got down to the actual, I don't know if you can see them, but it got down to the red and black wires, the 2-wire ones for the lights, and they are a 28 gauge wire, which is way too small for the actual crimper that I had because these pins are massive. They're huge pins. You can see them in there. And like I said, they're like auto, or aviation style pins. They're for much bigger type airplanes. So I was trying to figure out what to do, and it kind of was sitting here scratching my head, and I tried one, and as soon as I pulled it, it just fell out. And I was just like, man, this is not going to work. And it's not doing what I wanted it to. But then I started, kind of rumbling around with my brain and, kind of toying around with it. And I realized I have specific heat shrink that I bought for a project way back when that actually shrinks 3 times its size. So you can get a bigger piece of heat shrink and it will shrink down, but it and it's got glue on the inside. So it shrinks down and then it glues itself to the wire. And I was like, hey, this will be a good idea. So I stripped the small wires to where I had about 1.5 inches of bare wire. And then I folded that I made a little, I took my, a real small pin and I wrapped it around the pin to create like a lot of, like a ball of wire. And I wrapped it all the way down to the actual sleeve of this 28 gauge. And then I put this heat shrink and I shrunk it. So now I took a 28 gauge wire and made it as big as the servo wire with the heat shrink. And then I had this big ball of wire at the top so that now the crimps, when they went in there, they crimped all this wire as if it was a big, stranded, because they're stranded. So I just folded the strands back on each other and it's just like a big fray of stranded wire. And then it worked perfect. It crimped, it held, and it went right in. And I was truly amazed. I was like, wow, that was so easy to do. So now if you pull on it, it doesn't come out. And, I think it's going to produce, a little bit better connection. And anyway, it seems okay. I did have one side of the airplane, this little connector fit perfect. It slides in, and I have 2 flathead screws that go in, countersunk screws that hold it. But the other side, the hole was a little bit too big. And so I had to do some modifications. So I actually put some fiberglass in there, and that's why this one's not in the airplane yet. The other one's already in the airplane. But this one here, I've got there's nuts in the back of it right here, and then there's a screw that goes through through the actual airplane and then pulls it out to the wing so that it kind of sticks out like that. So and then everything's labeled and they're extra long. I put it in a, what do they call that, Jay? A snake sleeve, snake skin, something like that. Anyway, that'll go through where it holds the wing, and then it'll come out to the tray. And then all these wires here don't have ends because they're going to be cut so that they're custom lengths right to the receiver when the receiver sits down. So anyway, it worked out. I've been really super happy. The only thing that I had to do different is that I had to get a removal tool, because these normally on like servos, if you want to remove it or it's not working and you have, because you're going to test it. It's like all of these have continuity, but I don't know if they're actually going to, work until you connect the two and fire it all up. And so if something's not working and I got to remove it, I couldn't figure out how to get these out. Normally you can just, on most connectors, you can just use the X-Acto knife and stick it in there and kind of pop the pin out. But this one here, believe it or not, has a special tool just for this. And it's really weird. It's not very big.
It's got an opening, and then you just sort of shove it in. Basically, it makes it smaller, and then you just push it on out all the rest of the way out, right?
It does have an opening, but it goes above the pin.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like a little something on the top of the pin, and when you push in on it, it actually pushes down on the back of the pin, and then it'll come out.
So it'll come right out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does have a hole in the middle.
Yeah, I've used tools like that for some of the electronics work that I've done in the past.
Have you? Well, I tried to get it out before, when I stuck one in there, and then I heard it go click, and I was like, no, so I'm trying to pull it back out, and I'm like, I got my knife in there, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to jack up this thing, because I have to admit, they're not cheap. These are fairly, and the overall scheme of things, I mean, it's, when you're talking about turbine jet, it is on the less expensive side out of all the parts that I'm buying. But from a, servo connector, quick disconnect thing, there are other options that are much cheaper than this one. But this one, I think the pins are, I think they're like 50 cents each or something like that. So this one's got 20 pins in it. or 16 pins. So it's kind of crazy, but they have these in a 4, 6, 8, or no, it's in a 6, 10, 16, 20 size. And I got the 16 size because that was how many wires I had. But if I wanted to put anything else in there, I would have to, get a bigger one. So, but I do like them. They are very beefy and they're very strong. They don't feel weak. When you put the wing together and you snap them in there, it just pushes right in. So, and it pulls right out very simply. Because they're flat pins instead of round pins, so they just slide in and they slide right back out. But and they have a lot of connection area, so it makes my my connections really strong. So I'm excited, but that I was able to do some of that work and get the wings done and all ready to go. Then I'm down to where I just have to start doing electronics, putting the other ends on them when they go into the battery or into the tray. So I'm kind of to that point. But so yeah, I got a few things done, and then my family, kind of decided to spend some time. We went out and did some fun stuff with my parents that came in, and it's good to see them. And kind of the rest is history. A week went by really quickly. So, but other than that, I would have come down. Had my parents not been coming in, my family not coming in, I would have come down.
We understand how your parents are more important than Jay and me. So
happens every time, every year.
Well,
happens every year. It seems
every time.
That's not true. Not every. I come down there. I've been down there for Labor Day.
Dude,
they just happen to be coming up this time.
Yeah,
just they're coming up this time. But I know what you're saying.
Well, you missed a good time.
We did have a good time. Yeah. So one of the things I probably would like to start with in this whole thing is one. We flew pretty much every day I was down there.
That's amazing.
And so that was cool by itself. In fact, the first day was like really overcast, and so we were just out flying and whatever. And I get home, I was like, oh, you know what? I probably should have put some kind of sunblock on because
sunscreen.
I'm a little bit red. Luckily, it wasn't. I've been in Texas for a while, so
right.
It wasn't as bad as it could have been if I had been from Alaska and it came down for Labor Day or something. Because that would have been seriously bad. So that was one thing. The other thing was, we. I don't know. I think I've been flying for many years. I'm not the best flyer in the world, but I know a few things about flying and whatnot, and I've probably forgotten more than I've learned. But we were flying my first plane, which was the Dragonfly, which is Hobby King's North Star lookalike. So get off the ground, takes off nice. It's beautiful. The day is beautiful. It's just barely breezy. I mean, it's really a bonus.
It was very nice. It's some of the best weather we've had. We all
hear this sound. It's whatever it was like. I couldn't even imitate the sound, but we all heard it. We're like, oh, wonder what that is. I don't know. Seems to be flying fine. And so Jay's like, wow, you should bring it down because we should look at it. It's like, okay. So I land it and we look at it and give it a once over. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I can't remember who pointed it out, but one of either Jay or Jim said, I think something's up with the elevator. It's like, really? It doesn't, looks okay. Like it seems to be operating fine or whatever. So I was like, yeah, it's good. So of course, where this is headed because otherwise I wouldn't be telling the story.
There's safety number one.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'd like to call that is the elevator flutter of death. And so what had happened is that the elevator was loose, in fact, and actually it was flying fine, except for I decided I wanted to do some inverted flying, and I got it upside down, and it was kind of not really. It was nosing down into the ground more than I want to. So usually I rotate around instead of pulling elevator, but for whatever reason, whatever happened, it started coming down. So I was like, that's fine, no big deal. And it's coming down pretty fast. And of course, I didn't pull back on the throttle either, But I
He was
pulled up
going
on the elevator.
extremely fast.
So
Yeah,
wait,
that's
are
what
we?
back on
You're upside down, and
was
then it starts
inverted,
coming
and
towards you. So
So
it's
I'm
starting to
inverted, it
come to
starts
like a
coming down
split
the-
S.
No, it started just coming down toward the ground, like like the nose was.
No,
like
he's
it
flying the
was-
pattern. He's flying the pattern. He's coming around the pattern, but he's cooking, and he inverts it, and he's coming towards us, and he inverts the plane,
Yeah,
and then
And
the
then-
plane
and so
starts
it-
losing altitude.
right. And so
Oh,
instead
okay.
of rotating back around, and getting it corrected, I decided to just pull around because I had plenty of space. I was 3 or 4 mistakes high, and then all of a sudden we see. It's like, what was that? Oh, I don't have any
That's it.
throttle, and of course. I also still didn't pull back on the throttle either for whatever stupid reason. I think I didn't do that till like the very end of the coming down. I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
and and all of a sudden, pieces everywhere. So
Oh,
Jim's like,
no.
oh dude, that's bad, because it came down pretty hard. It really did.
Yeah.
And first thing I was worried about was like, where's the battery? It's like, oh, okay, the battery's fine. That's good.
Yeah.
Battery's fine. And
Ooh, save that battery. I don't have to buy another 2200.
right? That's kind of where it was. And then we get over there, and it's like 4 or 5 pieces, and it's like, oh, that's a bummer. The whole power pod had broken, and it was pretty much a mess.
So
And I'll
so
just
that's the
suffice
one
it to
with the
say-
motors. The motors on top, right?
On
And
top,
it's a
yeah.
pusher.
Yeah, in the
Is
back.
it a pusher?
Yeah, it's a puller. It's a puller, but
But
it's
it
in the
sits
back
up
above
high.
the wing. Yeah, exactly.
So
And
if you're
so,
inverted, it's like a boat propeller, right? It probably doesn't fly inverted all that well, does it?
Actually, it flies pretty well inverted if everything is
Mm.
proper. Because when I first got the plane, that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, it didn't fly. It wasn't flying well, and then it wasn't flying at all, obviously,
Yeah.
because I crashed it. And so I was telling Jay, I think I had even talked to him just the day before. It's like, what's cool about what's going on now is I could care less about what happens to any one of these planes. Like that. Before, when I first was flying, it was like, oh no, it might crash, and now it's
Right.
like, yeah, oh okay, let's go, let's see what happens, And so I don't really
Right,
have
right.
like too much like mental or emotional investment in these planes anymore, especially that one because I've flown that hundreds of times. I mean, that thing is
You got your
it
money's
costs me
worth
10
out of
cents
it.
a flight now. Yeah, for sure. And so so we take it home, and that it was a 3-day repair. I mean, Jay was working. I was working on other stuff, and we started working on my FPV plane, trying to get the software working on that. And so I was working on that, and Jay was working on this problem
Right.
I created. And so now since the Franken 10 is one of much repute, we've decided to call this the Dragon 10. Or the
The Dragon 10.
Frankenfly. The Frankenfly. That's what it was. Frankenfly.
Ah, there you go,
The
Frankenfly.
Frankenfly. Instead of the
That's
Dragonfly,
awesome.
it's the Frankenfly. So Jay put it together, and quite frankly, I inverted it, and that thing flew better than it did before. Like he fixed some problems that
Because
we
the
were
elevator was
experiencing.
working.
Well, aside from the elevator working, which I'm sure was part of the issue, I
Probably.
think the power pod. Well, the power pod had probably been, jacked around, and what Jay did was he put a block of that pink foam in there to hold it up. So now it's a real solid. Like before that, it could move like up and down just a little bit, but it could move. But now with that block in there, there's no way it's going anywhere. So it's very stable, even though there's a big gap right where there used to be no gap at all. And
Right.
he made some good mods. He put a piece of wood in there to mount the servos onto, and instead of straight onto the foam, and some other things. And so it's probably flown the best it's flown in quite a while since some of my
Wow.
previous accidents. And so he did a really nice repair. It did take him a little while to do it, but Jay loves to do that kind of stuff. It was like,
Yeah.
he
he's
saw
good at
that. I saw that, and I said, "Where's the trash bag?" And he saw that as like, "This is a challenge, yes!" and he definitely,
I can
he definitely
fix it.
rose to that. Yeah, he
Well, because
definitely
Mike
rose
said,
to that
that's it.
challenge.
Well, I got my money's worth out of it. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, dude, it's only in 3 pieces, 4 pieces.
Right?
I think
Well,
I think I
and
can
he
fix
was like-
this. He's like, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
throw
he
it away.
pre-fitted a lot of it. He pre-fitted a lot of it, and he was like, "Oh, this will fit back on there, like no problem." It's like, "Yeah, but what about all that missing figures? It's foam, like don't worry about it." And Jay and I, through the years, he's always said, "Well, the good thing about foam is you just cut that piece off and put a different piece on. You're
That's
fine. It'll fly."
Yeah.
And so I've really come to to accept and for myself that that's the way it works. And so even though it had these huge gaps in it, I was like, this will probably fly. It's foam. It's got a good motor.
Sure.
We didn't break anything. All the servos were working fine. Let's do this.
Right.
And
Right.
sure enough, it took off, and it goes
Flew
as
great.
fast as it always.
That's awesome.
Inverted fine and flew upside down better than before, and so.
Well, I will tell you that your emotional investment in the airplane usually, for me, has to do with the cost of the original airplane.
Yeah,
So
truly.
if it's in the lower end, let's just say you spent $80 to $150.
I think I spent $150 on that plane at the time.
So if you can fly it 150 times, that works out to $1 a flight. That's really
Yeah.
really pretty good, as
And I
opposed to
know I've flown it more
150
than
for
that.
one flight.
Yeah, I've flown
Yeah,
more
'cause
than
that
We
plane
talked
came
about
down
that,
from
right? So
Alaska.
what's the cost of
Yeah.
this flight? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was one of my first planes too,
Yeah.
because Jay and I have flown that
And crashed
thing
it numerous times.
hundreds of times. Yeah, hundreds of times.
Is that
And so-
that's the same one that I flew in Alaska in the wintertime with that was white on snow, right? Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And didn't we put like a one stripe, or you put like, did we do something to it where we put
Yeah,
tape
but I
or
think
something?
what I remember was that it was white. Well, no, wait. Actually, that one was a foam one I made. Of
yes.
of that version of
Oh,
a
there you
plane.
go, there
But I
you go.
used white
Okay,
foam.
okay.
And you're like, dude, don't you want to put any color on it? I'm like, nah, it's
It's in the
fine.
snow. Yeah, flying it in the snow, you can't see it.
Yeah,
So
it was fine.
this is the actual one from Hobby King, though. So it
Yeah,
already
from
has-
Hobby King.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but
I know which
after
one
I
I'm
made
talking
that
about.
one, I was like, I like the plane so much. I
Right.
just bought this
Right.
ready to fly one from Hobby King, and it's been a great plane to fly because
Sure.
it's what I like it because it's ground, water, snow.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
And the prop is protected, so I don't think I've broken many props on it. Only when I've totally dorked up the power pod, where
Mhm.
I actually, I think, and I had broke one prop because it was just too big for the plane, and I did a loop or something. It went right into the
Body of the
right
plane. You
into
can see the scar across
the
it.
body
Yeah,
of the
it's, like,
blade.
it's gutted out. You can see where we got it gutted out. It's like, oh, maybe that prop's too big. We'll have to use a different one.
Right.
And so, so it's been a great plane, really, and it still lives and flies well. So I'm really excited.
So you were able to take it home then?
Yeah.
And
everything-
without a trash bag is what I'm
Everything
saying.
you
Without a
brought
trash
down, we were able to either fix, modify, and we were able to send it back, even though you crashed
Yeah.
pretty much everything that you brought down?
No,
Everything.
no. I didn't crash the wing,
Yes, you did.
and I didn't crash.
I knocked you down out of the air.
No, you knocked me out of the air. That's right.
Oh,
I didn't
there
crash
you
it.
go.
You knocked
Yeah.
me out of there. And then the other one that I didn't crash, but we had trouble flying. It couldn't launch it the last time was the Panther. For whatever reason, it kept just nosing up on launch.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason was, we couldn't figure that out. And so I just I'm not flying this anymore because I don't want to break it. Right. I mean, I
Right.
broke all my other planes. I didn't want to break that plane. And
Makes
then we
sense.
had fun with the FPV. We had 2 days to fly that one.
Yep.
And that was fun. I did that under the hood. We had some interesting problems with it. We don't know all the issues, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the motor would just stop running. Like it would just shut down. And we think it was heat because it was a hot day. And we think
Yeah, it could be.
so we moved the ESC and the video transmitter to a different spot, and that seemed to do a problem. I think one thing I learned about that particular plane is because it's a V-tail, you have to go faster when there's wind behind you. And I had pulled back on the throttle, and then the elevator wasn't working very well, and I couldn't figure out what the deal was. And Jay and I talked about it later, and we thought, okay, problem is I was turning downwind and I had no throttle, so it didn't have any way to have an elevator. and so it just came toward the ground and obviously broke it because of that.
Oh,
But not so much so that it couldn't be put back together. We just need to
right.
glue on it and put it back together. It should be fine.
So you were downwind turning back into the wind, or you
No,
were
I was turning
upwind turning
in the wind. I was
downwind?
turning downwind, and then the elevator
You're
just
upwind turning downwind.
yeah, and the
Hmm.
elevator just wouldn't work anymore.
Hmm.
So either it was an equal problem that we were having before where the motor wasn't working properly, or
Right.
it was just my flying.
Were you slow?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
We think that's the problem because the wind was gusting at that point. We were flying it in gusting winds, and so it was
yeah.
basically it was probably being pushed by the wind, and it got pushed down. And I
That
couldn't
could have
correct
been.
it.
I mean,
I couldn't correct it
it-
because I didn't give it enough throttle.
right. I mean, if you're going upwind and you don't have, and the wind is kind of hovering and you don't have enough to penetrate the wind, when you actually turn to go downwind, you will lose a
No,
little bit of
it
that
could
lift.
penetrate. It could penetrate, but it just that again. I think when I turned downwind, it was going nose down at that time. I lost altitude because I was turning, and I didn't have a
Okay.
good elevator as I was going along, and I probably needed some propeller. I mean, some power in the turn as well.
Mm.
I think then I cut the power because I was like, oh crap, it's not the elevator's not working, so I cut the power because I was flying under the hood. So
Oh,
I think that I don't have enough
yes.
power
Okay.
going to make the elevator work properly, so it could continue to fly. Because I think it would have
Correct. I
continued
see what you're
flying
saying.
well had I given it enough power. But I was afraid to,
Yeah.
it was going
Yeah.
down. I was afraid to crash it in the ground full power, right? So I didn't give it.
Sure.
I just didn't behave right. I mean, I wasn't flying.
So you were in the FPV goggles, is what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That's a little bit different. I was trying to imagine seeing it make that turn, and I'm like, well, if the nose was dropping, you could have just rolled the wings kind of level and pitched up a little bit. That would have solved the problem. But if you're in the
did do
hood
that.
and you're only
I did
seeing,
exactly that. I did exactly that. However, again, because I was going with the wind at that point, I don't believe I was going fast enough for the elevator to be effective.
yeah, that could be the case. I mean, I wasn't there. I'm only going off what you guys are telling me, but
Yep.
just
the
my
only thing I can
mind,
come
my
up with.
aviation mind is working, trying to figure out all the
Sure.
little mini, things
Sure.
that could have happened or that should have happened or whatever. So
Or it just wasn't effective, whatever was working. So
yeah.
So we crashed it, picked all the pieces up, got all the pieces back, and put them back together. We even flew it after we glue it once.
Yeah, we were able to
crashed
do
it
that
again,
right there
so-
at the field. They were easy breaks.
Oh yeah. So you didn't pound it into the ground because you
No,
weren't full
no,
throttle
no.
into the ground.
Yeah,
No, and plus remember that it has a gyro in it. So the gyro would, if you let go of the controls, the
Oh, that's
gyro will
right.
just try to, save the plane.
And it did a pretty
Right.
good job. But again, I think because of the wind blowing behind it, even the gyro itself couldn't save it because there was no way for it to go. It didn't go fast. It doesn't go faster. The gyro just corrects for surfaces. It doesn't correct for throttle.
No, it does not.
Right.
You are correct.
Yeah.
So,
So that's what I think it is. If I had sped up, even though that was counterintuitive to me at the time, I think it would have been fine, and I would have not crashed into the ground. I might have got close to the ground, but I don't think I would have crashed into the ground because I would have had more effectiveness on the elevator.
yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
But we had fun flying it. Jay flew it a little bit. I flew it a little bit. It was good. We had a good time.
I flew it into a
Yeah.
fence.
No, the same thing happened. But the same thing happened to Jay. The power died, and he was like, "I'm way the hell out there." I was like, "Yeah, why are you the way the hell out there?"
Right. Yeah. Why are you out by the llamas?
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. That's where he was too. And
Yeah.
and he was bringing it back, and I was like noticing it diving, and I was like, "Huh." And I looked over at the radio, and he had the elevator full up, and he had the throttle full up, and so clearly the engine
Oh,
had
yeah.
shut down for whatever reason.
Right.
And it was just like
right.
low, slow, going towards the fence. I was like, "Huh, that's gonna hit the fence." Too bad that's not one of those barbed wire fences that has gaps that he might be able to fly through. Because quite frankly, Mike, he hit it in such a way that the whole plane went through one of the squares that was available. It
Wow.
went through. The wings popped off. They did not break.
Huh.
The wings popped off, and it went through. So the only thing that happened is because it's a square, it took the bottom part of the plane right off. Like
Oh,
there's a
right.
skid in the back, and it took that.
Right.
It just took it right off. But other than that, I think that was it. Maybe there was a crack. Because the wings got ripped off, they didn't. It pulled off some of the
Right.
foam from that.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, generally speaking, it really survived. He could have hit
yeah,
that worse.
it could have hit.
Like he
it
could have
coulda
hit the
like,
post and smacked.
Right.
It would an accordion the whole thing, but he didn't. So I think that all said, he flew that
He lucked
masterfully.
out.
Yeah, he flew that. No, I'm gonna give it to him all the way. He threw it masterfully to the square
There you go. There you
that
go.
he couldn't see.
That's
Well,
too
I mean, I
funny.
did save
That
the
is
plane because it was, when I got it was, oh my gosh, I don't have it.
Right.
Well, what happened was
You were-
I was flying, and all of a sudden there was it said it turned off the flight system. I was like, oh crap. And so
yeah.
he's like, what? I was like, take the plane. So
Right.
I was
It's
way the
yours.
hell out there to begin with, and then he couldn't really tell which direction it was going because he was sort of watching the plane but not really paying attention, like which way it was
Yeah.
headed, away or not away. But then he had to kind of get orientation. He's like, oh shit, I've lost orientation. And then he's like, oh, I got it. No, shit, I don't have it. And then all of a sudden he's like, why is it dropping? Like, I don't know. So when he turned back, and of course he's turned into the
funny.
wind too, which is another challenge, right? Because now he has
Right.
no engine and
Right.
turned into the wind. So it's just basically dropping out like an elevator, flying nicely and smooth. I was like, please get over the fence. And then nah. He's not
Right
gonna
into
do
the
it.
fence.
Right into the fence. But he hit it perfect, really.
That's cool.
For any kind of, he could have hit it so that the wire went right through the middle of it, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it was
too
good.
funny.
It worked out.
Well, listen, our time is up. We are going to continue. Our time is up, but we're going to continue discussing our labor play here. If you just hang in us, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back 2 weeks, and join us then for the remainder of our session. But for now, I'm Michael from Arizona.
I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I'm AK Mike in Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.